Hello, welcome to the show. Welcome to Fast Casual.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. I'm delighted to have you here. Like I start every episode that we do on this podcast, I always like to, have you introduce yourself rather than me because I tend to watch them all the time. And so, do you want to explain yourself, who you are, what you do, and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. My name is Michael Zaro. I am a owner-operator at Zaro's Family Bakery. It's my family's business. We are a fourth-generation family-owned bakery business. We operate a bakery in Elmsford, New York, up in Westchester County. We have 14 of our own retail stores throughout the New York metro area. I grew up in the business a little, and there was also kind of a desire from my grandfather and my father to not see us go into the business because the food business is hard and it's tough and all these things. And in my mid 30s, after working in advertising for many years, thought it would be an interesting thing to give a try and see where it went. And that was almost 15 years ago. And so I've been at it now almost 15 years, and I run our bakery, and I focus most of my energy on growing our supermarket retail business.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
It's funny. I feel like there's a real push by lots of businesses like yours to kind of get more into like retail. I actually had somebody on recently from a restaurant group up in Wyoming, and they're like selling their ice cream now, and they're selling like their sausage, and they're kind of like moving into like actually co-packing and all this kind of stuff. I'm hearing like so much of this, and yeah, that's very very interesting. So what, like, you're looking to like start like another like distribution arm or new revenue stream of like moving the baked goods potentially into other retail stores as well outside of your own retail outlets?
We are. So, we've operated our own bakery for forever. We had a commissary bakery from 68 until 82 in the Hunts Point market. And then after that, we had a commissary bakery on Bruckner Boulevard, which is where I worked. And we moved up to Westchester recently. But one of the things we noticed was we had available capacity in the bakery. And our stores were only going to sell so much more product. And so we said, well, what if we try and grow a retail business, supermarket retail business?
Whoa.
And we picked a handful of items that, cakes and rugelach and our challah that freeze really well, and we can move through a frozen supply chain. And we've cracked a few decent companies over the last 5 or 6 years. The pandemic really put a really big stop on it. We just couldn't grow. Labor issues, cost issues, it was impossible. And then coming out of that, we're focusing a lot of effort now on growing that business and really trying to expand across the country and go nationwide.
That's awesome. I mean, I love to hear that. I mean, it must have been quite a daunting sort of move. Does anybody were you like, okay, I guess we're doing retail now? I guess we're selling
kind of. Yes,
like,
kind of.
Hello.
It was sort of like, yeah, we should do this. Let's make this happen. How do we figure it out? And we were fortunate. We met. I had known a few people and met a few people along the way who were mentors and coaches and knew the business well and knew how to help us to get to that place we had to be, because selling your baked goods in your stores is very different than selling them at supermarkets. The level of consistency and quality, and not that we didn't care about that at our own stores, but it's a little more forgiving at your own retail shop than it is at a supermarket. And so, the cake better look the same every time, and the weight has to be the same every time, and the borders have to be the same every time. And so it took us a lot of years to get there, and we've had some ups and downs as we've seen changes in labor and management and our team. We've seen, and throughout the pandemic, big swings in quality, to the point where there were points where we thought we'd lose all of our supermarket business. We moved our bakery in the middle of the pandemic. We were having a very hard time getting staff and keeping consistent staff. Our management team, me at the head of it, was having a very hard time kind of keeping it all together at the bakery. But we came out of it, and we struggled, and we fought for it, and we believed in it. And so it never seemed that daunting. It was just kind of like, let's just make it happen, and piece by piece, we closed King's in New Jersey and Big Y up in Massachusetts. Then we kind of stumbled upon Harris Teeter down in North Carolina. And then a number of other customers throughout there. Heinen's out in Cleveland is a
Yeah.
customer of ours. And so, we've been very fortunate to build some really amazing relationships with some really great markets over the last, let's say, 7 years. Now we're trying to figure out that kind of next step and develop those new and next relationships so we can continue our growth. And I've been traveling a lot to try and do that, and we're I leave the meetings feeling very positive, and until you get, I always say to my brothers and everyone, until you get that first purchase order,
Yeah.
I don't get I don't get too excited. So
What did they say in Glengarry Glen Ross? Get them to sign on the line that is dotted.
yes, oh, absolutely.
That's amazing. I mean, has that upended sort of the view on growth for the business now? That is there, because you're 14 stores, which is a lot of stores anyway. And so just in case you're like, where's he going with this question? So you got 14 stores, and then you have this nascent sort of retail business that has huge growth potential. You know what I mean? And so is the future a dual future, or are you looking at say one section of it is always going to be sort of a dominant sort of revenue driver for your business?
I'll go back with, I guess, what we've learned over the last several years. Our bakery business, our retail stores tend to be in high traffic, high volume commuter hubs. That's where we do well. Grand Central Terminal, Penn Station, New York, the Port Authority, Newark Penn Station. We've recently opened in LaGuardia at Newark Airport. And we do really well there. We have, over the years, while I've been in the business, while I've not been in the business, we've tried what we've called kind of brick and mortar street locations, and they've just never done well for us. And so, part of it is, okay, how many more of those are there locally within our reach? There aren't all that many. And so, so there's that. And then there's just the cost of owning, and the difficulties and challenges of operating retail stores every day of the week. That are a real kind of turnoff to us. As we have seen some struggles, we've fallen on our face a few times over the last bunch of years. And so while the supermarket business isn't easy by any means, and it has a number of its own pitfalls, distribution challenges and relationship challenges and cost challenges and all the things that kind of come along with it, we're still making the product, but now we put it on a frozen truck and we kind of wave goodbye to it. And then the retailer has to do their job and put the product out and sell it. But for us not to have to do that second part is, it's exciting for us, as we do know the whole thing from A to Z. It's exciting to maybe just go, A to M, kind of let someone else do get to Z.
I mean, my understanding as well is that I have one of my best friends is up in Westchester, and he has a food startup as well. And I guess I'll connect you afterwards. But was also saying to me just the challenges of just even getting the product on the shelf and presenting itself on the shelf appropriately. And, all the different types of people you need involved to even go in and make sure that how is the cake displayed? Is it just down the back, or is it at the front of the shelf on the aisle? And there's so much to it, I guess, that you need to learn. And in particular on your side, on the fly, given that you're we're moving into this section into retail now. So we need new stores, we need new chains. And then it's how is the product even presenting itself? Your V1, how far have you come from the very first thing you ever sold in retail to where you are today? How do you think about the difference and how much you've improved?
It's a great question. And these are things that I certainly didn't think about at the level you just explained when we first launched, and we think very differently about them now. Interestingly, we haven't come that, I take that back. We've come pretty far. We've changed our packaging. We've overhauled our branding. We look at the packaging in a very different way now. I'll give you a great example. So we always wanted to launch our product in boxes, our rugelach and our cakes. And the reasoning behind it was we wanted to kind of get that feeling you got when you used to go to bakery as a kid. You left everything in a box, not in a clamshell not in a plastic dome, right? So, and that was kind of the big shift, was all the domes and plastic. And we said, all right, we want to be different than that. That was a challenge selling people on, for sure, because buyers said, well, I wanted it in a dome. And we said, no, it's in a box. And they go, yeah, but I wanted it in a dome. And we go, please try the box. And the box is a success. Now, the things we didn't think through was where's the window on the box? And if the window's on the top of the box, if the market displays the product, on a higher shelf, well, now you don't see the product in the box. So then we
Yeah.
had to do another window. Then we changed it to a cascading window. And so and then a bigger window while still getting our branding on the box. So yeah, there's a different level of thought goes into it. And same with bags. We started out with a very clear bag and a very, on our challah, and a logo that it was almost hard to see the logo. Then we've really gone with this black and gold, these beautiful colors that we love and we're really proud of, and that we feel like they speak to the heritage of our business and the quality of the product. Well, on the first round of bags, we went a little with a little too much black and a little too much gold and not enough window. So you weren't seeing enough product. So now we're expanding the window a little bit and going a little bit further in a different direction. It's very interesting versus, putting it on your retail shelves on a pan, and you pick it up and you put it in a wax bag and you hand it to somebody and you say, thank you very much. And to get that customer engagement it's certainly a whole different level of challenge.
It's interesting you mentioned just like, people's expectations of like, you want to get to like the point of like when you were a kid that you would get like, you go into the bakery and you get the box and all the little bits are inside it. I was mentioning to you before, like on the call that I had like, the CEO of East Coast Subs on, and he was saying to me, like their big challenge for 2024 was kind of getting past like the expectation of third-party delivery, meaning that like they changed their business model, obviously, like everybody during COVID, and became a third-party business, using Uber Eats, DoorDash, etc.
Sure.
And how basically when the sub was delivered to you, I don't want to say it was substandard, but it was the experience of when you literally are in the store and you get it. And he was like, look, I want basically like, we've looked at our packaging, we've looked at everything, but like, if you're going to come into the store, that like when you open it, like the fumes are coming out of the sub. Like that's like, you have to have as most an elevated experience as you possibly can, given that like your experience of third party makes everybody think that everything met, and it's like, it's interesting for you to say that, because it's like, that's like the feel for, I think, a lot of people within like, food today, which is like, almost we've kind of given a pass to like the last couple of years because of like our experience of like all moving online and how we like get food. I always think, even me personally, I always think like, when you buy like Tide and it comes with like a handle. Okay. So like that's designed in the 1960s, I guess, and it's on the bottom shelf so that like housewives can walk in and they can pick up the big thing of Tide. Why is it not sent in a box, like in the mail? Like, why does it have to be stuffed with paper inside the box? Like the experience, the janky experience of going online, like bringing offline products into online and vice versa, has like changed people's, and obviously steroids now over the last 3 years. And so it's getting back to those sort of familiar sort of experiences I think everyone kind of really wants. So it's cool to hear that you're saying that as well about like, how do I get that experience back in people's hands, and it's like, it's cool to see like, iterating on the product, because it's like, you're now effectively like a product designer. You're like running a product design org for your food, like how do you like the cascade, all that stuff like really fascinates me, because it's like, what gets somebody like when they're walking down that aisle, and if you're in like I guess if you're in California, you're walking in Safeway and you see like all the cakes and you see all the product that's right there. What's the one thing that stops me on your product versus like everything else? You know what I mean? It's like,
it's a great question.
Psychology of it is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's one of the reasons. So we've gone with our packaging is black, and it has, we call it cream, but it's a gold, a light, a muted gold that has the Zaros on it. And I mean, we're really proud of it. It really stands out when you look at it against all of the other stuff in our category. And even we were at a food show in Salt Lake City the other week, and the number of people, it was really for specialty natural stores all over the country. But the number of people who stopped at our booth because of the packaging just kind of caught their eye. And they were, wow, what is this? And they'd kind of pick it up and they'd look at it. And then we'd ask them if they'd like a sample. And then they'd eat the product, and we'd talk about New York, and we'd talk about the story, and the product, the packaging, the story, it really resonated with people. And um, I guess, look, in any business, and when you're trying to grow a business, there's so many ups and downs, and there's so many things that seem so exciting that don't work out to what they are, and you kind of start to, at least for me, second guess what you're doing, and are we on the right path? Is this what we should be doing? And then you go to this food show and you get all this amazing feedback,
Yeah.
and you kind of start to go, oh, maybe we are doing the right thing, maybe we are onto something good here. And I only say maybe because, again, until we get orders, I don't want to pat myself on the back.
Yeah.
But it was very encouraging to hear that all this work that went into all these little details on all of this packaging was noticed by people. And then the product inside speaks for itself and gets people excited. So
Yeah.
it's unbelievable, these little teeny details. To get back to kind of your original question, all these little details and all of these little changes you can make, and what a large effect they can have on how your product sells and how people notice it, and if they notice it at all. It's pretty astounding.
It's funny. You made me laugh. Just like this people come over, they're like, oh, they like to see the packaging. Last year we went to a conference, and the kid on my team, I shouldn't call him a kid, he's like 25, but like, I guess I'm so old now. We were like, we need like a showstopper. Like, and he's like, you know what I mean? I was like, we just need any reason for somebody to stop by us. You know what I mean? It could be anything. So we printed out a massive, like Drake doing the stat thing or whatever he does.
Yep.
And of course, we belonged to right at the table. And everybody came over to the table. Like, it was amazing. I mean, it was just like, objectively, it was incredibly dumb. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it worked.
But it's
right?
like, it worked. And it's like, what's the hook? Like, I always think, like, in our side, like, it's like I'm responsible for all the go-to-market and the marketing and everything else. And I'm like, what is it about our product that, like, we're selling, that people resonate? And every day it's like something new, you hear it. And I always like to refer to us as like a painkiller. Like, we solve a very big problem for people, like as if we're like an aspirin. But at the same time, you want to be more than that, because most people are healthy more often than not. Like, not everyone needs an aspirin every day. So, like, what kind of value are we presenting to people when they see like what we are, they hear about us, and it's like, I think, the phrase product market fit, I think it's like, we have a product.
I've never heard that before.
Okay.
But it makes sense.
You actually have, I presume, yeah? Like, you're not to say
no, I really?
Haven't.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's a real tech phrase, which is basically like when people stand up a website and it's like, have you got product market fit? Like, have you got people willing to pay for your product? You know what I mean? Like, product market fit. And like, we got really strong product market fit. Like, that's why I refer to it as like a painkiller, because it's like, wow, when people hear it, they're like, okay, I've got a serious problem, I need to use this. But it's like, I guess that's like 90% of the marketing is like solving the problem. And to your point, it's like, when people see the box, they're like, ooh, but it's like when they taste it, they're like, now I get it. And then it's like, okay, there's the product market fit right there. Because like, ultimately, like, we're in selling into HR is a commodity space. You know what I mean? Like, we're like, right. we are commodity, whatever you think about it. Like, I mean, ultimately, like, what we sell is a solution for people in HR. There are other people selling solutions, just like in the way that, like, fundamentally, you're like a bakery and you're selling a product that other people kind of sell. So, like, you didn't invent it, you know what I mean?
No,
so
and it's a real challenge to fight the kind of the drift toward commodity for our items.
Yes,
it's like we have to make it not a commodity, because the minute we become a commodity, then someone else comes along and it's a little bit cheaper or a little bit whatever, and we're no longer of mind.
Exactly. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the power of your brand is kind of will step up for you, as like, you lean more into the black and the gold, and it's like people see what it is, and it's in more stores, and it's more of mind, and it's in like, not up here, it's at eye level on the shelf.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's the hope.
And
we really play up New York too. And I have found over the years that New York means a lot to people with food and bakery, especially out of the New York area. I had been in a meeting a few months ago in North Carolina, and we sampled some products, and then they took all of our products and they put them on this banquette for anyone in the cafeteria to go take. And I was sitting in the cafeteria doing some work, and I watched people, out of the corner of my eye, I watched people come and kind of sift through all the products. It wasn't just ours, it was multiple people,
Yeah.
multiple companies, and sift through the products that had been left out for them. And I saw a young kid, he walked up, probably like you just said, he was probably 25, but but I saw him come up to the banquette and kind of look across, and he went, "Ooh, New York." He didn't even look at what it was, and he picked up our products and he like ran out the door with them. It was like, he had just found this amazing thing. And so, yeah, again, it's like these little hooks, that we can kind of hopefully sink in. That sounds horrible. But that we can gain some traction with and get people excited about the product, and then keep it top of mind.
And I mean, fourth generation as well. Like, I think that type of message resonates with a lot of people. Like, stand up your bakery tomorrow. It's like Michael Zaro's, and it's like my own, and I'm separate from the family, versus
Right.
like, no, there's a history into the craft of making this in the first instance. Like, there's ample room, ample territory, green grass, essentially, to like tell the story and build a narrative around what makes, your baked goods so unique, or like, give them a place to stand on their own, versus like the point we're saying there, just like, commodity. Because I think that's like that's the quest, is to like stand alone as your own
Absolutely.
unique brand. And it's like, are there like, and it doesn't have to just be bakeries, but are there like analog brands that you see that you're like, that's a type of success that like I think we can achieve, or that we would love to achieve?
I mean, there's one I always look at, and I don't think they're doing anything in the supermarket retail space, but I look at Russ and Daughters as a great, a great family business story, that they've really, what they've done with their brand and how they've expanded it, and how they've, how people know it everywhere now, is just amazing to me. And it's something I look at and go, why can't we do that? We have that. We have a family story. We've been doing this since the 20s. We started in the Bronx instead of the Lower East Side, but I see similarities in what they've done, and I couldn't tell you exactly how they've done it, but to me, it's very impressive. Their reach, their recognition, is just phenomenal. And I look at them as kind of a gold standard.
Okay, that's cool. And is there anything about them that makes them the gold standard? Like what? Like what is the what in your mind?
I mean, I think they have a phenomenal product, and a different product. They make it's smoked salmon. It's it's yeah. I don't know exactly. I question myself. I ask myself that question. What is so different? How do they do it? What have they done that's so amazing? They do sell bakery goods. They sell black and white cookies like we do. They sell babka like we do. But it was really like the appetizing stuff that gets them the recognition that they have, and then they've grown and built off of that. I don't know. I don't know that I can answer that question of like exactly what. I don't know. I wish if I could, I'd probably have an easier time trying to figure out how we.
I was wondering if you could talk yourself into the answer, and then you finish this call and you're like, "All right, I got it."
Got it. I know what we're doing now.
Like that Don Draper moment.
Yeah. I wish.
But it's funny because I told my missus that I was meeting with you today, and she goes, "Zara," she goes, "I love that place." So you got one fan in this household, anyways.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know she loves her baked goods. But we're just going to Miami now, whether or none. Tell me. I mean, but I suppose before we wind down, I'd be curious just to talk about the stores themselves, because you've alluded to it a number of times in the conversation, just the struggle with like this, I would say, staff or hiring, especially during COVID. Like, I always ask people about the pre and post kind of COVID experience, especially when it comes to like hiring, because there's been like a boomerang in the market, but the problem is the baggage that hourly workers have brought with them. Positive baggage, mind you, like in terms of like wanting more benefits and being competitive, more money.
Yep.
Like how is that how has that experience been for you across the 14 stores that you have?
Sure, I can speak better to our bakery, but I'm very familiar with our retail stores, and I think there's some similarities between the two.
Yeah.
We have been very fortunate as a company that we've had a lot of long-term, long-standing employees. I'm talking 15, 20-year employees, and still at retail today, and at our bakery fewer, but I'll talk retail for a second. We have a lot of employees who've been with us for a long time.
Yeah.
filling in the gaps in between those employees is challenging. My brother Scott, who runs our retail stores and is a huge believer in team, and making sure people are clear on what they have to do every day and what's expected of them every day. And then also at the same time, making sure they're compensated both financially and, and treated well every day of the week, by management, by the rest of the team. He puts so much emphasis on that with the folks down at the retail stores. And I think because of that, he's helped to retain a lot of these longstanding employees, and build the culture where, it's a place you want to be, you want to work here. Now, then the flip side of that is still kind of filling in the gaps. It's still really hard. Especially I think when you do set a high standard and you've got a lot of people who also now work at a high standard. I think finding others to continuously work at that high standard, and make sure if, at our Grand Central station, that a customer is going to be in and out of our doors within 2 to 3 minutes. Kind of no matter how bad the line is. That's a tall order and it's hard to do. And it requires a level of hard work and attention and detail, and making sure the customer's getting the right order. Filling in the gaps is still a challenge. I wish there was some kind of quick fix for it, but there's not. And it's, people kind of will come in and you give them all the opportunities you can. You train them as well as you can. I think I know Scott and I and Brian, we've always talked, the thing we look for, the thing we look for most in a person is, and this might sound cliche, but I believe in it, is a great attitude, a willingness to work hard, and a willingness to learn. And if you kind of have those three things, there's nothing you can't do at our bakeries or at our retail stores. It's not always easy finding people who have those three things and want to show up with those three things every day of the week. And then finding those who have it and helping them to maintain it, is a true challenge for anyone at our stores, for all of our managers, for us as business owners. It's I guess it's for anybody in any business, right? But it's hard to do.
I always ask that. I'm glad you answer that without me even asking you, which is always a question about like identifying talent. And it's like, one thing I hear from everybody on this podcast is that like service can be taught. Like you can show somebody a POS, you can show somebody how to move something from an oven to a tray and vice versa. But like, can you train them to smile? Can you train them to like give a shit, basically? You know what I mean? It's like, it kind of needs to come from within. And it's like that kind of great attitude, that passion, that sort of pride for it. And it's funny how you allude to it, because it's always like, I always ask people like, what are the intangibles? Because you can teach the service. What are the things you're looking for within people? And everybody answers it kind of the same way, but also differently. It's like, honestly,
makes sense. That's why
I should put all this into
cliched.
I should put every single transcript from these episodes and put it into ChatGPT and summarize the intangibles for me. And I'm sure I'll come out and I go, everyone in hospitality, this is what, if all these like leaders are saying this is what you need to hire for. Let's like look for that, because exactly what you're saying. I mean, it's like everyone's kind of like looking for that, and like just the kind of a good heart, good attitude, and you can kind of scale them up, like.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, at the bakery, it's sometimes a little bit harder. There are certain skills, like decorating cakes is hard. I have a great attitude. I want to work hard. I want to learn it. I can't decorate a cake. I just don't have the hands for it. It ends up being a mess. But you know what? I can go and braid a challah, or I can learn I can bake rugelach. So there's, if you have those few skills, there's always something that you can do. You might not be the right fit in the cake, but maybe you'll be the right fit in the oven room. And so, or baking bagels, or, whatever it is. So yeah, I don't know. It sounds so simple. I wish it was really that simple.
That's awesome. But, I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
But here, tell me, the last question I always ask people on the podcast is a particularly vague question. I'm just gonna put you on the spot,
Sure.
It's like I haven't been on the spot this whole time. But what advice would you give somebody listening on this podcast? Now, imagine that they're your peers. So, what advice would you give?
What advice would I give? Wow, that's a tough question. to my peers who are in this industry. So because it's funny, I get people coming all the time. Oh, I'm going to leave my finance job and go into the food business. And I go, why would you do that? What's wrong with you? What advice would I give? You know, I can say for me personally, over the years, I think it's a stressful business. It's a hard business. I like any business is, but it's challenging, and it can be all encompassing. The hours can be long. The work can be stressful. The immediate need to solve problems and deal with things can really weigh heavy on somebody. Or I shouldn't say somebody, on me. I can speak for myself. And I think, finding ways to be able to kind of walk away from work and turn off from work, and making sure you're getting the rest you need, taking care of yourself, however that is, right? Whatever it is you like to read, you like to work out, you want to spend time with your family, whatever those things are, but making sure you do them, and you do them with the same level of intent and focus you give to your work, for me has really helped me to kind of find more balance in my life. The balance part sounds cheesy because I don't know if you ever have real balance, but to find more harmony maybe in life, and it makes the challenges at work a little easier and a little lighter, and makes the day a lot more enjoyable. And so, yeah, I would say just make sure you're taking care of yourself, whatever that means.
Right on, man. That's awesome. That's like great advice. I mean, I should take that advice.
Thank you. I try.
Not a peer.
Well,
but no, man, honestly, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. No, thank you so much. This was fun. I had a good time.